There were plenty of great movies this year, and that of course means plenty of great movie moments, but of all the memorable movie moments from this year's cinematic output, there's one in particular that sticks in my mind more than all the others. It wasn't in Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, it wasn't in The Lighthouse, it was in S. Craig Zahler's third feature film, Dragged Across Concrete. We have a conversational review for Dragged Across Concrete right here on this channel, and in it I talk about this scene in a more off-the-cuff way, but now it's 8 months later, and I still find myself thinking about this sequence all the time. It is burned into my mind. It was by far the most impactful movie moment of 2019 for me, and quite honestly, this scene hit me harder than almost any other movie moment I can recall. That might sound like hyperbole, but I really do mean it. This scene f***ing hit me. It's a total gut punch right in the middle of a film that at various times had me feel like I was gonna throw up, fist pump, cry, and shout f*** yeah. Sometimes all at once. I knew this scene was something special the first time I saw it, and now at the close of the year and of the decade, I want to dig into it in what could be called excruciating detail to break down exactly why it's so effective. As you might guess, I'll be spoiling the moment and the whole film, so please watch the movie first before this video. The first time seeing this moment in context with the rest of the film is a once-only experience. It won't have the same level of sheer impact on rewatch. So don't let your first time seeing it be in this video in isolation from the rest of the film. Spoilers from here on out. The moment I'm talking about is the bank heist and Jennifer Carpenter's death scene. Jennifer Carpenter is on the poster. She's highly billed. She's in the trailer. Yet her first scene doesn't come until almost an hour and a half into this 2.5-hour film. We learn a lot about her character in an efficient and emotionally affecting scene. She's a new mother who used up all of her maternity leave, vacation, and sick days, and is dreading going back to work and leaving her baby for even a moment. Given the tone of the film and the environment of this particular cinematic world, this immediately puts you on edge. It's not instantly apparent how she fits into the narrative, but as soon as I learned her backstory and I saw that baby, I was worried. Let's take a look at how those extrinsic elements I mentioned factor into the effectiveness of her death scene, that being the poster, the cast billing, the trailer. All suggest a greater prominence in the film than her character actually has. Her screen time is minuscule in this lengthy film. These extrinsic elements are not mismarketing, they're misdirection. It is very much on purpose. These elements make you think she's one of the main characters. You might expect, like I did, that this character's introduction was following a similar structure to something like Fargo, where our main protagonist doesn't have her first scene until decently far into the film's runtime. Once it's clear that she's caught up in the bank robbery, you might think, given her prominence in the advertising, that she will be taken hostage and her either living or dying along the way will add extra tension, but nope. She doesn't make it out of the bank. And she doesn't just die, she gets horribly, brutally murdered. She loses an entire hand and a couple of fingers on her other hand. And the final shot that kills her results in a complete head explosion. An effect which is usually used cathartically, but here is used for an emotional gut punch, while the bad guys get far less gory deaths. You can see where the priorities are in regards to emotion. If the bad guy has his head explode, then it can be super cathartic, but there's nothing cathartic about Jennifer Carpenter's death. The complete inverse. Their deaths need to be executed differently since they achieve such different reactions from the viewer. A head splatter for the bad guys might be a great release of tension at the end, but their deaths need to be executed differently since they achieve such different reactions from the viewer. From this point on until the epilogue, the rest of the film is near unbearably tense. The stakes are incredibly high since the film has effectively made you hate these bad guys with a fiery passion for what we've just seen them do. The staging of this standoff is unique, perfectly set up, and ingeniously complicated, but further heightening the tension is the knowledge that nothing in this film is guaranteed. The bank scene tells us definitively that there are no safe bets. This movie is not one that makes the easy choices. S. Craig Zahler says that through his writing process he's constantly trying to surprise himself, and it's plain to see that he succeeds.
My writing process is surprise myself every day, and this is why there are the shocking moments, or surprising comedic moments, or surprising dramatic revelations in my movies and in my books.
I wouldn't be surprised to hear that Jennifer Carpenter's character was actually initially intended to be the hostage, and that her death was one of those surprise himself moments that Zahler shoots for. I think it's a great motto for storytelling, and it's something that I've begun placing added emphasis on in my own writing. Zahler's previous films, his novels, and this very film itself have already proven a high level of unpredictability, and with Zahler, a satisfying ending is guaranteed, but a happy one is not. This means that even though we've seen plenty of movies where one action guy protagonist finds himself in a standoff, hell, we've even seen this exact kind of situation with Mel Gibson before, but Dragged Across Concrete is entirely different, and that we cannot confidently assume that our protagonist will win. The grim, immediate mortality of Dragged Across Concrete makes it a perfectly viable option for the bad guys to win. And after we've seen them do the things they've done, that outcome would just be absolutely devastating. You hate this trio of bad guys so much by this point that there's a real desperate desire to find catharsis by the end of Dragged Across Concrete, something that other films don't even attempt. And everything is heightened by the fact that Zahler might not give us what we want. It's masterful filmmaking. Zahler's films and his books show a knack for making violence shocking in a way that many others can't achieve. He excels in unbridled brutality and has a complete command over the distinctions between cathartic violence and realistic violence. More so than the vast majority of films, you can really feel the horrific destruction a gun causes. The hot lumps of metal that burrow through a human body. It's a terrible mental image, but one that is more true to life than many cinematic depictions of gun violence. The first time I saw this moment, I legitimately felt sick to my stomach. And I mean that as the highest compliment to a film. There's a much-deserved confidence to Zahler's filmmaking. He's confident in his tension building and allows sequences to linger and exist in drawn-out forms, because he knows the viewer will be on the edge of their seat. In retrospect, you might think back to the tailing driving sequence and feel like it's a bit longer than it needed to be. But in the moment, your heart's beating like a dozen horse hooves down a cobblestone street, worrying that at any second the trio of fucked up baddies could kill Michael Jai White and or Tory Kittles, who you want so badly to see live. And just look at this framing. This is exactly how a director would frame this scene if the point of it was to surprise the audience with one of them getting shot in the head and their blood coating the windshield. I mean, just to give another example of his confidence in tension, think of your favorite thriller.
Give me the gun, David.
And think of how much of a role the musical score plays in building tension. Now realize that Dragged Across Concrete doesn't use any music at all for its tense scenes. Dragged Across Concrete has a great soundtrack performed by the motherfucking OGs, but the music is all diegetic, and it's not used for any tension building in the way that your average thriller would do. The tension scenes in Dragged Across Concrete play out in silence, and you know what? That just makes them even more tense. Every single element in this film is present to highlight one of three senses: the sense of tension, the sense of catharsis, or the sense of tragedy. Not only is Jennifer Carpenter a new mother with separation anxiety who gets horrifically gunned down, that would be enough tragedy for many filmmakers, but not for Zahler. This is also her first day back at work, a day at work that she did everything in her power to avoid. She misses the bus, she begs her significant other to let her stay home, and she only even ends up going in after swearing on her baby's life that she will go to provide for him. This still isn't tragic enough for Zahler. The whole reason she gets shot is because she is following the bad guy's instructions precisely to the letter. One of her co-workers is trying to contact the police and she gets shot for trying to stop him. And the baby booty is just the cherry on top of the tragedy sundae. Everything works in service of heightening this sense of tragedy, and it is remarkably effective, especially on a first-time viewing. This sense of tragedy isn't confined to just her character either. It's a theme throughout the film. Michael Jai White heroically swallowing the key, only to vomit it up after being shot repeatedly in the legs and crotch and having to swallow it again.
Where's the key?
Ask a proctologist.
Tragedy. Vince Vaughn being shot by the hostage, then listening to a voicemail where his would-be fiancée rejects his marriage proposal moments before expiring.
Sorry. It wasn't what I wanted to hear.
Perfect tragedy. And Zahler is so adept at balancing tones and emotions that he can even manage to derive humor from such a depressing turn of events.
Want me to break it?
Mel Gibson ineffectually hammering Vaughn's cell phone as a conduit for dying anger is perfectly suited to both characters and their emotions, but it's also pretty fucking funny. These are hard tones to balance, but Zahler pulls it off in a way that looks effortless from a distance. Dragged Across Concrete is a masterclass in building and orchestrating tension, and generating empathy in an audience for your characters, and in stirring up a need for and delivering catharsis.
I'm surrendering. Taking your deal.
All right, come on out with your hands up.
I need medical.
This moment hit me so hard, I couldn't stop thinking about it, and the image of her wounded on the floor holding up that baby booty with the remaining fingers of her mangled hand kept me up at night right after my first watch. Dragged Across Concrete is my favorite film of 2019, and S. Craig Zahler is one of my favorite, not just filmmakers, but all-around creators, writers. I'm eagerly awaiting all future projects from him. Thanks for watching my video essay. If you enjoyed it, then subscribe and stick around for more of the stuff I make. If you want more Zahler-related content, we ran a Dungeons & Dragons campaign based on his film Bone Tomahawk. That was a lot of fun. You can click the screen to watch that or look in the description of the act card. Or you can check out the review we did for Brawl and Cell Block 99 or the reviews I've done of his books. So, stick around, I'll see you in the next video, and guess what? This is just what my voice sounds like, so get over it or go away.